So we have dissected the managers, the hierarchy, the future of the club. Now it is time to look at the signings themselves. We'll be counting down from 5 to 1, looking at the 5 worst signings since Fergie, the 4 best, the 3 that got away, the 2 former United favourites they'd love back, and perhaps most importantly, the 1 current player they need the most. So Gerard and Jack, we've got a lot to get through in this section. But first, Gerard, just give us, out of the 36 signings, who are your hits and your misses and maybes in terms of numbers?
Oh, I'm going for 36 signings. I've looked through all the signings and it's really bad. I've gone for 5 hits, 18 undecided, 18 maybes, and 13 misses. Now you think I'm sitting, you might think I'm sitting on the fence there, but there's a lot of signings that really still need to come to fruition. But to have 5 hits from 36, I know this is just my opinion, but that is a bad ratio for Manchester United.
Okay, well, let's start with the 5 worst signings then since Fergie. Jack, kick us off.
Well, straight in there with Alexis Sanchez, I think. The only positive I can say about Alexis Sanchez is that I hope Manchester United have finally learnt their lessons over signing that profile of player. Ones who, let's in no uncertain terms, they're after the cash. That's the way it looked like with Sanchez. He was on almost £500,000 a week, and it was just a complete and utter car crash from start to finish.
I totally agree. Sanchez, I think Sanchez and Di Maria are the two the 2 definites there. I think you just write them down now in Sharpie, Jasper. Get them down on lockdown. Laminate it. Those 2 are in Di Maria and Sanchez.
Why Di Maria, Gerard?
So much expectation, and back in 2014, £67 million was a huge amount of money. It's actually changed so much in the 6 years since then. That's the same amount that Bruno came for, which again is a lot of money. But even 6 years ago, that's almost like 100 million now. And he came, he won Player of the Month in the first month. He won Goal of the Month. Then after that, and then after that, it went to pot. Yes, I think he had personal issues in Manchester. His house got burgled, as James said earlier. Just not up to scratch there, and I think he left on bad terms as well. So Di Maria and Sanchez are definitely in there.
Yeah, and for all that happened in his private life while in Manchester, there's no coating over that. It must have been awful. But I think it was the way he left, and in their when they played in the Champions League a couple of seasons ago, he was really provoking fans, shall we say, when PSG scored at Old Trafford. And I just thought it was unnecessary because the fans at the end of the day, they back the players through thick and thin, and none of them had anything to do with what went on there. So, yeah, right up there with probably some of the worst signings.
Okay, you've got 2 of your 5 guys. Gerard, add another name into the pot.
Morgan Schneiderlin.
Remember him? Where is he now?
Yeah. What stunned me most is that people say United are bad at business. They made a £1 million loss on Morgan Schneiderlin when they sold him back to Everton. They bought him for 25, sold him for 24. He just didn't do the business at United. I thought he was going to be that, not just a bit of strength at the bottom of the midfield, but someone to knock the ball about as well. And it just didn't work for him. I think he was overawed by Old Trafford.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that now he's at Nice, so he's got the last laugh because he's sunning it up in the south of France. So I'm not sure he's too bothered about it. So 3 players then. You got 2 spaces left, guys.
I'd like to throw Matteo Darmian into the mix, if I may. I've got a funny story about Matteo Darmian. I once had the privilege of covering Manchester United at Liverpool away. I think it was the one where Wayne Rooney scored the late winner. Louis van Gaal was manager. That wasn't the highlight, though. The highlight came before the game. I was actually in the tunnel, the old tunnel before they built the new main stand at Anfield. Really tight, compact. This is Anfield sign. The Manchester United players are walking in single file, veering right into the dressing room, and Darmian just carries on straight and tries to go into the Liverpool dressing room. So before he was ushered back So that sort of just showed that, as well as not knowing where he was going on the pitch, he didn't know where he was going off it either.
That summed it up, didn't it?
That story alone, I think he deserves to go in then.
But is Darmian? I mean, I get Darmian and Diogo Dalot mixed up. Jack, can they go in as one, please? Is that possible?
That would be unfair.
Just United in that right back area. They've gone through so many right backs. And they even found a home for Ashley Young there. And Valencia, I think, played there maybe a year too long.
Well, that's why I think Diogo Dalot has to go in there as well. There was a lot of fanfare when he came in from Porto and played a handful of games, most of those in the Carabao Cup. So, as you say, Ashley Young was one of Manchester United's best players that season, for a couple of seasons at right back, filling in for players that were supposed to come in at right back. So I don't know what you feel about Diogo Dalot. Have we got agreement on that?
Jasper, can we get Dalot in as well? I'm talking to you if you're
that could be your five. I am officially the referee of this discussion, but that would be your five signings. Unless you've got any more to add, then you've got your five there.
I think Eric Bailly would be a contender. Jack, you might not agree.
I see what you mean. He had an incredible. Well, let me just stop myself. He didn't have an incredible first season at Manchester United, but when he did, when he came in that raft of signings with Pogba and Ibrahimovic, there was definitely signs there that he could do a really good job for Manchester United, and he's had a lot of debilitating injuries, and I just think I'm hesitant to put him in because he's still there and there's still time for him to turn things around. You never know, he could score a last-minute winner at Anfield and then his status is secured.
Whereas Di Maria, Sanchez, they're not going back to Old Trafford. They're long gone. Okay, I'm with you on that. I think you probably can't put Bailly in because he can prove himself and because of his injury issues. So we've got our five, I think, Jasper.
Okay, so the five are Di Maria, Sanchez, Schneiderlin, Darmian, and Dalot then, guys. Let's focus on something slightly more positive, shall we? And talk about the four best signings since Fergie. Now, you said you only had 5 hits, Gerard, so this might not have been the hardest task for you. But kick us off with your first best signing.
Bruno Fernandes. They chased him. It felt like they chased him for years. Many clubs did. They finally got him. And I felt when he signed, my reaction was, well, they didn't sign him before, so he can't be that good. Stupid logic from me. They chased him for ages. 18 goals, 13 assists in 33 games. Just brilliant.
I wonder how many people thought along the same lines as well, because over the years, Manchester United have always been linked with these up-and-coming players. Yep. And you only ever see highlight reels of players in Portugal and Italy. So I just thought Bruno Fernandes might have been another one of those, but he's completely proved everyone wrong. He's an incredible signing, and it makes you wonder how, for a club that have had their issues in the transfer market, they're able to they deserve credit for being able to pull that deal off.
Short memories. I think people forget it. People forget that less than a year ago, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer made one of United's best signings since Fergie, and I can't see it slowing down for him either. Fernandes, he's been superb.
Okay, add another name into the hat then, Jack.
Zlatan Ibrahimovic for me. The arrogance of the man. Exactly what Manchester United needed. That presence, chest puffed out, Cantona-esque. The minute he walked through the door, he walked the walk and he talked the talk. He talked the talk and he walked the
He did everything. He did it all.
Right, sorry. He talked the talk and he walked the walk.
I totally agree, Jack. 28 goals and 46. Some of those goals were just brilliant as well. I think he helped. It was that final against Southampton, the Carabao Cup final. He was just fantastic. He scored the winner. I know he didn't play in the Europa League final in Stockholm against Ajax, but he was superb that year, and he really, I think, for me, that was just the year that Ibrahimovic proved himself, because playing in France, there's always that question mark, isn't there? But yeah, he was brilliant.
Okay, guys. So you've got Fernandes and Ibrahimovic. Who's your third name?
I'll go with Ander Herrera. As you mentioned earlier, Gerard, they almost spent a decade courting Ander Herrera. And while he certainly wasn't the best signing to walk through the door, he instantly grasped what it meant to play for Manchester United, and you could see that. And that's something we can't really say about a number of signings of those 36 signings that you have listed there, Gerard. He looked as though he enjoyed every minute, and the biggest thing for Herrera for me is whether you question his quality. He always held Manchester United to a higher standard. You could see he just felt that the club needed to be at a higher level. Never got overly excited about victories and was always planning and looking ahead. And I think he had a massive role in the squad. And I think the legacy of that is still being felt now.
I agree. I think Herrera was like a Fergie signing. You mentioned that he never got too excited at victories, and he would always be looking ahead. That was United's way under Fergie. They'd celebrate quickly, and then they would be looking ahead. Rio Ferdinand tells this story of when they won the Champions League in Moscow. They all go to a hotel afterwards to celebrate with their families, and
Shield.
Yeah, and Rio goes up to David Gill and says, "Who are we signing? How are we getting better? What's next? What's next? What's next?" And Herrera had that about him. I think he had that sort of benchmark expectation. But Jasper, after Fernandes and Ibra and Herrera, which some United fans might disagree with, it does get really difficult, I think.
Okay, well, you've got to pick a fourth name, because that's otherwise the countdown is just all over the place here.
I don't know if you know
for me, I think
Gerard.
For me, I mean, if I had an opinion on this, there seems like quite an obvious one. It's one of their first signings and a man who's still in their starting 11. Do you know who I might be talking about, Gerard?
Yeah, I think
the nicest man in football.
The nicest man in football. Juan Mata. I think he gets in. Great servant.
FA Cup final goal scorer.
Yeah, and he always just reappears, and I think his standards are high. I imagine his standards are very high in training as well. So for me, Mata sneaks in there. You might disagree, Jack. You might agree.
No, I agree. Long service and still oozes quality whenever they get the chance to put him on. And I think he holds a lot of the players to account. And very, very good signing.
That's your four.
Okay, we've got Fernandes, Ibra, Mata, and Herrera. And Herrera's an interesting one, guys, because I wonder if, as well, there's a case for him fitting into our next category, which is the three players who got away. So this is the players who have left the club since Fergie. Herrera, obviously, one of those. But who would you chuck in as another name, Gerard?
Johnny Evans, for me.
Oh, that was my one.
Oh, sorry, Jack. All right, I'll let you talk about Johnny Evans. I'll say.
You tell me where I went wrong.
I'll say Wilfried Zaha. I'm going to go for Wilfried Zaha. I think there's a lot of hindsight involved here, but he had a loan spell away, went back, and then they sold him. I just think now he's proven at Palace. I think that he's a £50+ million player, and I think United have gone through so many right wingers, including, by the way, Zaha. But I just list some of these right wingers for you: Zoran Tosic, Alexis Sanchez, Depay, Obertan. This, by the way, is since Ronaldo left. Depay, Obertan, Dan James, Di Maria, Mkhitaryan, Nani, Ashley Young and Valencia played out there as well. Some decent names, most of them not good enough. I think Zaha, if they'd maybe have kept on to him, could have been a useful player for them now, but with the caveat of hindsight, of course.
Of course.
Go on then, Johnny Evans.
Johnny Evans, big drum roll, please. When he left Manchester United, I honestly, he came in for a lot of criticism in his early days with Ferdinand and Vidic there, and you can understand that they were one of the best centre-back partnerships in Premier League era. But when Johnny Evans left, it was almost like Louis van Gaal just made the decision. He was quite ruthless in his decision making, Louis van Gaal, and it was his way, and that was it. And I think it's a decision that haunts Manchester United almost seemingly with every passing game now. He's one of the top defenders at Leicester City. They let him just leave the club. And I don't think any of you could tell me now that he wouldn't walk straight back into the Manchester United team. Yeah, and they had him 6 years ago. Yeah. And he cost absolutely nothing, came through the academy. I just think it's an incredible decision to let him go. And yeah, one that they're living to regret, I think. Especially now we're talking about they need to strengthen the defence at centre-back. Johnny Evans would still get a game for Manchester United, without doubt.
He left Man United when he was 27. I think that's quite telling. And he's played 150-odd Premier League games since he left United. He not only probably just get in the team now, he probably would have been in the team for the last 5 or 6 years. And I think they would have tried to replace him.
Captain as well, perhaps?
Yeah, captain. He has that leadership. It's just the fact. I feel like he left the club quite early in his career. And yeah, I think they're definitely regretting that.
Okay, that's 2 of the 3 names, guys. I'm going to have to get a third from you now, Jack.
I'll go with Memphis Depay. Again, another one. Over the years, United have persisted with signings and pulled the trigger too soon on others. And in most of the cases, you almost wanted to flip that round and persist with others and get rid of some others earlier. Memphis Depay certainly falls into the category they should have persisted with. You just wonder what might have been had they kept him a little bit longer. He's taken his time to flourish and he's had to go to Lyon, but there's talk now of some of Europe's big clubs chasing him, and he's always a threat and he's got character. He's a very unique kind of football player. He can play centre forward role or on the right wing. I think it's just a shame. It would have been interesting to see what would have happened if he had stayed at the club.
I think, Van Gaal gave him a chance, of course, signed him. Jose wasn't really having it with Depay. I think he got just 130 minutes under Jose. So I think that's where the drop came, really. And should he have given him more chance? What was going on behind the scenes? I don't know. But I think Herrera's a contender for this 3 players that they might regret selling and play 3 players who got away. But I'd agree with Depay as well.
Well, Herrera's still operating at he got to a Champions League final. I think every team, I know they didn't win the Champions League final, but every team does need players in the mould of Herrera, don't they? If they are you need that niggly tenacity in midfield. Another one I was going to mention was Romelu Lukaku. 41 goals in 57 games of going to Inter Milan, and for some reason it just didn't work at Old Trafford. I get that. Like, if you look at the goals record, you could say he's one that got away, but part of me still thinks that now, if he did return to Old Trafford, the same sort of issues would be there. So that's why I think Memphis Depay would be one who could come back now, and Johnny Evans, and they could have an impact now.
Gun to your head, would you swap in Herrera for Zaha? So Evans, the 3 that got away, Evans, Herrera, Depay, or Evans, Zaha, Depay?
Well, it's a tough one. I think Wilfried Zaha definitely developed. He was never going to develop in the glare of Manchester United, and he's had to. Now, imagine if you could just slot Zaha back in. It'd be an incredible prospect, wouldn't it?
Maybe unrealistic to. I think when I put the case forward for Zaha, it's maybe unrealistic because would he have been given that chance? Would he have grown at United like he grew at Palace? Perhaps not. So that's a tough one. Do we leave it to our referee?
Yeah, well, I've already decided. You've got Evans, Zaha, and Memphis Depay. Brilliant. I think that's a pretty strong selection there. Let's get on to one I'm really interested in hearing from you guys now, because there's so much choice in this. And this is the 2 former players that they would love to have back. So not necessarily the recent players that have left that they could have back, but we're talking legends of the club, these great Premier League winning sides. 2 players that they could have to come into this current team. Jack, who is one name who definitely should return if in a dream world they could?
Yeah, I like this hypothetical world you've drawn up, Jasper. I think Manchester United have been crying out for, as well as Anthony Martial has done, they have been crying out for an out-and-out typical centre forward, and for that reason, I've gone for Ruud van Nistelrooy, the hungry, the most driven and greedy striker in the world who just dominates the box. And Manchester United need that. They're a bit flimsy in attack. It's all nice when it's going well, but they need someone who can grind things out. And that his goals record and that tenacity up front would just serve Manchester United so well and give them a focal point for an attack.
Okay, I can tell by Gerard's reaction that he doesn't necessarily agree with that.
No, Van Tappenroy. I liked him. I really liked Van Nistelrooy. He was a brilliant striker. I think he had a fight about him as well. Remember those games against Arsenal? Which, by the way, I think he was hardly done by in those games. That's for another podcast. But
the Battle of Old Trafford.
Yeah, I think
Part 2.
Yeah, I mean, he was kicked. But Van Nistelrooy, yes, did they need an out-and-out striker? Did they have that in Lukaku? Has football changed since Van Nistelrooy? Can you have that just simply a goal scorer doesn't maybe do much else? Maybe.
Well, you've got to pick two names here. So would Ruud van Nistelrooy not even be in your top two?
Personally, I'd go for Keane and Rio Ferdinand. Roy Keane and Rio Ferdinand.
Why?
Roy Keane, I mean, because if I didn't pick him, he'd probably find me. No, I mean, Keane's really Keane. I mean, you could pick Paul Scholes, but what United need now is United need now is leaders, and Roy Keane is the leader.
Can I just clarify something?
Yeah.
So, I reckon Paul Scholes could have a game now for Manchester United. So, are we talking about in their prime or?
But then Paul Scholes couldn't tackle, and you have to be able to tackle as a midfielder now in 2020. So I don't know. And Roy Keane could tackle when he wanted the ball.
The prospect of Roy Keane in that dressing room,
exactly.
People's phones off him at half time.
Exactly.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic. I think we can settle on Roy Keane. It's just the second one. So Roy Keane and.
Well,
if he was influenced into becoming a sort of Instagram influencer of his own and putting up these end of game Instagram stories, we could see a completely different side to Roy Keane if he got back into this squad.
I wouldn't rule that out because he's hanging out with Mika Richards a lot, and I wouldn't rule that out at all. But my argument for Rio would be United need a centre-back partner for Harry Maguire. Centre-back's a massive position for any title winner. And it's probably a toss-up between him and Vidic, but Rio could play the ball out like no one else. And he had the leadership as well. So I'd probably just go for Rio over Vidic. So I'd go Keane and Ferdinand. Jack, what do you think?
Jack, who would your second name be, coincidentally?
Scholes and Van Nistelrooy are my two, but Gerard's made such a compelling argument.
I don't want to force you into this. I'd let you have Van Nistelrooy.
No, I think that the ball playing abilities of Rio Ferdinand in this Manchester United team would just knit everything together. All those issues that have plagued them defensively would just be sewn up. And with Keane as another layer of protection in front of that and whipping people into line in the dressing room, they'll be title contenders this year if we can get those in.
Yeah. Okay, so Roy Keane and Rio Ferdinand have made it back into this squad. Right, let's get on to number one, the last section of this podcast. One player that they should sign in the winter. So who is the player right now in football that's going to change this United side, Jack?
We've seen the impact that Virgil van Dijk has had at Liverpool. Defences are the cornerstone of success, and Manchester United need to re-establish that defence. I think everyone, it's a drum that's been banged a lot over the last few years. So I'm looking at the kind of signing that would have an impact that Van Dijk had at Liverpool. And when you look through defenders available in world football, Van Dijk's obviously not available. I think he would be the best, but that's just never going to happen. So you draw up the shortlist, and there's one standout candidate, and for me that's Kalidou Koulibaly from Napoli. Simple as that. The best defender available in the business at the moment in Europe, and brings that presence and stature to the defence. And yeah, Kalidou Koulibaly for me.
Gerard, do you agree?
I think I was originally coming into this and thinking defensive midfielder, but Jack I actually agree with Jack. I'm not sure I could justify adding another midfielder to United's.
When you're just talking about potentially Pogba being moved on in the previous section.
True, so. and Matic also will retire.
They still need a defensive midfielder, guys. Sure.
Yeah. Well, my two shouts there. Number one, maybe hasn't reproduced the form that won him 2 Player of the Year, but N'Golo Kante would be one for me, because I actually think he realistically could become available in the next year or two. He doesn't always get played by Frank Lampard. And secondly, sorry, Leicester fans, Wilfred Ndidi. And again, if United came in for him for big money, would Leicester and Ndidi say no? I don't think so. So my two shouts would be Kante and Ndidi, but I also I hear Jack in a big way on Koulibaly, and that can change your team.
So do I have a consensus then?
I think I'd go Koulibaly first, and then one of Ndidi and Kante second. So that's my I'll give you that, Jack.
I appreciate it.
Okay, we've got agreement then. So that is our 5-4-3-2-1 section of all the players that Manchester United had that didn't work out, the ones that did work out, the ones that got away, and the ones that they desperately need back. A true dissection of just where that £1 billion has gone then during this podcast. We have finished it by concluding that, well, they're going to have to spend even more money.